Hi guys, in this week's episode of Taylor Talks Trades, we are with Michael Tonart from Matchless Gas. He's talking to us about how he turned his life around at 26 years old by getting into the gas industry and how he's used that knowledge to build a thriving business. I hope you enjoy. Hello Michael, welcome to Taylor Talks Trades.
Thanks a lot, Jamie.
I'll start where I usually start. So how did you find yourself in the trades then?
Well, it took me a long time to find my feet in the gas industry, to be honest. Well, I left school when I was in fourth year, not through my own choice, and it took me a good while since I had kind of left school to kind of find my feet. I didn't really work, mate. I had the odd job here and there, just jobbing about, man, as you go, you know. Yep. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was young, daft, mad, however you want to put it, do you know what I mean? We've all experienced that at some point in our lives, but I think I was about 25, 26, and I kind of got to a point, man, and I was like looking, all my mates and all that they'd got to a point where they were kind of moving on in their job. They weren't just working, they had
they were maybe qualified now if they'd done an apprenticeship or whatever they'd done, they were now going through the career ladder.
Totally. They'd been promoted and they were buying mortgages and it wasn't just a wee car they had, they were getting all these nice motors and that, and it kind of made me realise, you know, I was at a kind of wee bit of a sticking point in my life, and I'd been in a wee bit of trouble in that back then, and I was like, what am I doing here? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's going on, man? It was like I had a kind of awakening, do you know what I mean, to what was going on around about me. So a couple of people that I'd known had actually went and trained as a gas engineer. But it was difficult for me, man, because when I left school, like, I had 0 standard grades. Like, the only thing I got a good mark in was PE. And that was just because I was fit and I was into fitness, do you know what I mean? Like, maths, science, English, like, I bombed every single one of them, do you know what I mean? And when I was looking to go into becoming a gas engineer, like, it was, I felt quite at my depth, do you know what I mean? Because I didn't really know what to expect, and you always kind of think, like, what education do I need to be doing that, do you know what I mean? And that played a big factor in me, because I basically didn't really have an education, not because I was daft, but just because school just wasn't for me, do you know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't for me, and that was that. But I decided to go and do this course. It was a 6-month adult apprenticeship. So another thing as well, like, you know, once you start to get into your 20s, you're like, I'm not desirable to people to get a 4-year apprenticeship, do you know what I mean? Because you get to that age. So that kind of looked ideal for me. I knew a couple of people that had done it. They went, done it, completed it, and they had a good job, and it was like they'd almost kind of fast-tracked themselves. So I'm like, I fancy that. So I went and done it, and it was actually me and my pal had actually signed up for it. We'd went there for induction day, paid the deposit and all that, and the day or 2 is were meant to start. He never turned up.
Oh no.
And I remember being on the phone to him, and he's like, I can't get out, that's a load of rubbish and all that, and you don't even get a job at the end of it, and you're paying all this money, and I'm not going to bother, and all the rest of it. And he's still now trying to fund something today, do you know what I mean? That was nearly 10 years ago. So I decided just to kind of crack on with it, but honestly, like, kind of just where I was at in my life at that point, like, I turned up on the day, first day. I walked into the classroom. I was late. I'd been out all weekend. I was rough. Do you know what I mean? I think I had a black eye because I'd been fighting and all that. Do you know what I mean? And just that's just where I was at, man. And I was in this class with all these people. They had been doing plumbing, electrical engineering, like joinery. Some of them they had been at uni doing like degrees in chemistry and all that. And like, I'm sitting up the back of the class, man, and I'm going, I'm trying to think to myself, what am I going to say? We're going to run the class, the teacher, and it was like, no, what's your name, what's your background, what have you been doing? And And I'm like, oh man, like I'm trying to make something up. Do you know what I mean? To try and fit in. So it was challenging. And I remember this boy. He was he was a boy that had finished for he'd get a degree in chemistry, and he was talking about all these sections in the book and all that he'd been looking at and covering off combustion and all these things. And I'm like, my brain is busting already here. Like I'm like, how am I going to do this? Do you know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't that I self-doubted myself. It was just where I was at in my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just, there's so many, I feel like there's so many, back then it was a different culture. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a different day to what it was now. Like, the majority of your school get into bother. Do you know what I mean? There was always some form of fighting or trouble, and it was just the way the culture was. Do you know what I mean?
And is it Glasgow that you're kind of from?
Well, just outside Glasgow, Dumbarton, but pretty much just the exact same. And things have changed a lot since then, obviously for the better. Do you know what I mean? But
so do you think you were just kind of quoting that culture of that's what you'd always knew, and you didn't really know any other way? And a lot of people probably get that, and then they just need almost that wee sign of there's something there, there's that course, go and try and do that.
A wee bit of hope, because
it's quite good for anybody listening, like that's maybe in that position. It's like good for them to hear this, because it might go, even if you're 25, 26, it's like you can still go and still go and learn. You can go and actually get like a qualification behind you and go and have a good effort in the trades, really. So
absolutely, and I feel like when you kind of get to that point, it's easy to write yourself after. You know, you've been through school, you've got into loads of bother, you've not really done well in your grades, you've left school, you've not got a job, and you kind of some people get in their early 20s and just think, I'm done. Do you know? And it's mental. Do you know what I mean? Like 20, man, like oh my god. And they just totally write themselves off, and that's kind of what I done. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know, even though I was there, I always just knew it wasn't my destination, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always just knew there was something else out there. So I had done the course, started the course, and I was sitting in next to this boy who I've come through the industry with. He's a good pal of mine. He's actually a rep now for one of the manufacturers. But he was mega switched on, like he knew all the sums and all that, right? And I'm like, so where I was at in the class, like they were coming out with this just basic calculations and stuff like that. Mate, I didn't know it. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't because I was daft, it was just I just didn't listen when I was in school. Like that's just know where my head was at. And when I get shown stuff, I would pick it up first time and I would retain it. Do you know what I mean? But I struggled, do you know, like it really did feel kind of overwhelming for me. And then there was parts of like the book, when the lecturer in the class couldn't be bothered reading it out, he would get everybody in the room to take a turn it, and I'd be like, oh my god, I'd be sweating buckets, do you know what I mean? Like dying for it not to come to me, because...
And did that feel a wee bit like maybe being back at school, or was it a better learning environment?
It was a better learning environment, but
you always know that if you learn this, by the end of this, you can do X, Y, and Z. At school, sometimes you don't know, you didn't really know why you're doing some of these subjects, and I was probably similar, that if I'd knew what I would have needed some of that stuff for, I might have stuck in a wee bit more, but it didn't really resonate with me a lot, and it was almost sometimes you just felt like, why are we doing this? Like, what's this going to equate to later on? And do you know, I'd kind of probably already put myself into a box to say I'll be hands-on when I leave school, so I didn't need any of this. But it's not really, probably not true. But your route is probably showing that even if you didn't do too well at school, you can go and get a trade behind you, and then obviously you've went on and you've started your own business.
Absolutely. And I think like there was people who. I mean, there was somebody who was in the class, right, and like fair a day, if we started, he got 100% in every single test that we done, right? Like the wee guy had a photographic memory; it was insane, right? He couldn't apply himself to the physical stuff,
right?
Do you know what I mean? Like
so
when
it came to actually.
When it came to actually working hands on,
he just knew the theory.
Being out there, there's so much more to a trade than just what you can do in a bit of paper when you're doing a test. You know what I mean? Even when you take people's personalities, do you know what I mean? Like when you're in working in different people's houses and how you communicate with people, and that's a different type of confidence, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel that when you're younger, you don't really recognise that, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went through that, and I don't know, mate, I was just very, very determined, you know, like as much as I felt really uncomfortable back then and what I was doing, like even my own dad says to me when I told him I think the course was about $6,000 and he's like, what are you doing? And it wasn't, do you know what, it wasn't actually the fact that he didn't think, it was more just because of the way I was living my life, right? It was like, you're not going to go and do that, do you know what I mean? It wasn't because he didn't think I was capable of doing it. It was just the way.
It's interesting that because he's just basically looking at like the evidence that you've given so far
absolutely.
does suggest that you're probably not going to be able to do it, but you'd already in your mind switched something to say, look, this is it. I'm going to be determined. I'm going to do this.
Definitely. So I started that. It was like such a big transformational time in my life because I had just started that course, and then I had just met my ex-partner at the time. So I went from being a young, daft, single boy to going to go and get a trade. I was in a relationship and then I found out I was going to be a dad. And it was like all these things hit me at the one time. But it was amazing, do you know what I mean? Because that's what, I really believe that's what made me want to be different. Because I was like, whether I love, hate or despise this, like I need to totally apply myself to this. I need to change and I need to go after this and I need to make this happen no matter what the odds are I felt were against me because I was going to be a dad, you know what I mean? That was the biggest driving factor. My first wee girl, Darcy, I've got a wee girl and a wee boy. But that, you know, like even though I didn't understand how to work out the calculations and ventilation and all that stuff, like I wasn't scared to apply myself, do you know what I mean? And I would be going in and like, I'd be going in on a Saturday when nobody was there, with a teacher and being like, right, mate, simplify this for me, do you know what I mean? Like, how do I work this out? Do you know what I mean? And I always remember, right, like, so do you know that way people are dead scared to apply themselves in front of people when they've got an audience, right?
No, definitely.
I wasn't like that. So whenever we were going through the whole kind of ventilation process and stuff like that, the teacher would be like, who wants to, he'd put a sum up on the board and be like, who's coming up today? And obviously nobody wants to do that stuff. But because I had been in with him on a Saturday and I'd been doing that, I felt like I had a point to prove to myself because everybody was sitting there the week before getting all the answers right. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh man, I don't even know how to work this out. Do you know what I mean? So I went up, figured it all out and all that on the board, and I remember a guy who was taking the class, he actually went to the training centre, he wouldn't stop clapping, do you know what I mean? And it was just, it's like, stuff like that I thrive off of, do you know what I mean? Like that accelerates me, do you know what I mean? And I forget about the fact that I could make that, that's irrelevant, do you know what I mean? It's like, I've pushed through more. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think that's just somebody believing in you a wee bit, or like it's a sort of...
It's like you're almost overcoming something, isn't you? It's like when you're applying yourself to something that you don't think you'll be able to do, and then you do it. Do you know what I mean? Like
prove yourself wrong or right, whatever way you were kind of looking at it.
That's it. It's
like you kind of know you can do it, but there's also that bit of doubt where you're like, could I actually do it though? And it's, that's good, like step out your comfort zone and doing that.
Totally. The first time I went out in a placement, I went out with City Tech, the college fund you a placement. You would go out and you would spend like 14 weeks in the college, 14 weeks out doing your placement. And I became really good pals with a couple of boys in there. One in particular who's now a manager there. And like anything this wee guy didn't know about boilers wasn't worth knowing. Do you know what I mean? And he helped me so much, do you know what I mean? Which also accelerated me, but I was dead interested in it, Jamie, do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to just do it, like, I wanted to be as best as what I possibly could at it if I was going to do it. And people picked up on that, do you know what I mean? Like,
you could see how keen you were.
A lot of the older generation, do you know what I mean? Like, people who wouldn't really usually bother with photo specials, you know what it's like? A guy's sitting there, he's got 25 years experience, went through a 4-year apprenticeship and all that, and then you've got somebody who's just went and done a 6-month course, who's then in the same industry, effectively near enough on the same page then. There's a level of, no bitterness probably isn't the right word, But
there is a wee bit of like them
disconnect
what do
between
you
the
know
two
kind
of
of
them.
thing. How's it took me that long, but it would only take you that long.
And there becomes
and did you bring that barrier down then by just saying,
Aye.
look, I'm willing to listen to you and I want to take that information
Aye,
in?
absolutely.
It's a
Do
good
you
way
know,
of playing it.
I'd got a lot for them back then, and I'd noticed a lot of the older kind of generation and that they really took to me. Do you know what I mean? Because like if I was out on a job, I'd be like, look, I don't know how to do this. I'm not looking for you to come down here to do this for me, by the way. Like, tell me on the phone, like, speak to me, like, as if, like, simplify it for me as much as what you possibly, like, I will follow your guide, do you know what I mean, like, a phone, and that's how I learned, do you know what I mean? But it was good to obviously get the relationships, but I went back into the college and I actually failed my ACTS, right? First time, theory and the practical. And I was gutted, man. I really was, I was gutted. I wasn't the only one that failed it. But, do you know, mate, I just dusted myself back down and I was at a point, do you know, like, this is one of the main reasons I think it's dead important for you to apply yourself to stuff, because sometimes it's just not the things in the surface, do you know what I mean, that people look at as unimportant, right? So obviously when we all went in as a class to do the final assessments, right? So the ones that had passed first time, they were already away getting jobs, do you know what I mean? And some of them were out in the same placement and that as me. So ultimately that creates a level of doubt where you think, man, I've just failed this, do you know what I mean? Like, I've been out here on the placement with these guys, I wanted out to get a job there, so did these other people, they've passed first time, they're going to get that job, do you know what I mean? And that's just kind of where my head was at. So I went back in and I passed it second time. And there was an issue back then. I think I waited nearly 3 months, mate, to get my qualifications through. But I was like, you know, I knew 6 months is 6 months. There's only so much you can condense into that. If you don't learn that and then apply it, you'll not retain it.
Aye, absolutely.
So my pal who I'd been out with, I'm like, look, do you mind if I just keep on coming out with you while I'm waiting in this stuff?
The placement, so
the
he
placement,
kept you on. Aye, that's good.
But it was a boy that worked within the company. So technically, do you know what? He wasn't even meant to be picking me up because I wasn't insured or anything like that, probably to be out with him. Do you know what I mean? Not we fought anything like that back then, but he done it out of goodness his heart, the boy, do you know what I mean? And literally, I wasn't working or anything like that. I was literally just shadowing him, driving about in the van. But it was kind of off the record. But basically, the director of the company, he found out about it. Right? But he couldn't, so I was out with him. Like, this wee guy was a workhorse. Like, he done standby every night of the week. He would pick me up in the morning and I would get dropped off whenever he was finished. Sometimes that was 4 o'clock. Sometimes it was 8 o'clock. Do you know what I mean?
Just
it didn't
whatever
really
he had
matter.
to do, go through.
Aye, and then I would go home.
And you were doing all this for free?
For free, mate.
Just to learn?
Just to learn. And then the director of the company, he found out about it. A few weeks had went on and then they were obviously looking for other people and that to come in. And then my name get put forward and it was like, oh, what's he been doing since he left the college? And he's like, well, he's actually been out with us. And he couldn't believe it, right? And this guy was one of the kind of he was like an old school generation. Do you know what I mean? And he phoned me up and he's like, oh, listen, I didn't really know and all that about that. He's like, but basically, you know, if you're willing to apply yourself like that, that's really, really good. Like, no many people would do that because they wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, the bottom line is, I'm not bragging about that. Like, most people wouldn't do that, Jamie. Do you know what I mean? And that was just how much determination I had. Do you know what I mean? That I was going to get that job because everybody wrote me off. Even my own dad. Do you know what I mean? Not in a nasty way. Do you know what I mean? It was just facts. Do you know what I mean?
Like I said earlier, it's like he's only doing that for the evidence that you'd gave him up to then, and if he'd maybe seen what happened with the 6 months you did there, then gone and working with that firm for nothing, like that probably would start to change people's opinions. But nah,
totally. So I got he offered me a job and I got a start with him. And do you know what? I probably spent the first year of that being out on my own, walking into a job, getting the information off the customer, going to the boiler, then I pick the phone up. Right on the phone to my pal. Right, this boiler, it's flashing, it's doing all these things. What does it mean? Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like a 6-month course, it teaches you how to be safe.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
It doesn't go into in-depth fault finding, and even if it did, there's only so much of that you can retain. Do you know what I mean? There's such a wide variety of systems and different boilers and everything there. It's like you
can only learn that.
You can only learn
in the
so
field
much.
as such. Aye.
So I worked there for about a year, and then I got a job with Scottish Power. It was the first kind of part. It was social housing, so you were only ever really working on one boiler.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I left there and I went to Scottish Power, worked there for a few years. That was really good. That was all private, so it got me a lot of experience. Do you know what I mean?
A wide variety, different boilers and different scenarios.
I got into a wee comfort zone.
Yeah.
In the first place, like I kind of know what I'm doing
here. Because you're kind of doing repetitive.
They like, oh my god, what's this thing, man? I've never even seen that before. Do you know what I mean? Again, and then I actually left Scottish Power and I went to SSE, and I was there for a few years. Again, I've always been working in the industry. Like everywhere I've worked, people have taken to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they've taken to me, because for anything other than, you know, I've just applied myself. Do you know what I mean?
Showing that you're keen to learn and keep learning.
Totally.
That goes a long way with people, definitely.
I mean, even when I had got the job, like even when I was in SSE, right, the time I had got there, I'd maybe been working for like 3 years, right? So we used to get a 4-day week in the summer in SSE. So, but on my 5th day, I was going out with like the lead engineer and everything. Do you know what I mean? And going out to
it was meant to be your day off, but
it was meant to be my day off. Do you know what I mean? And again, I would go out unpaid to just the way I seen it, I was enhancing myself. Do you know, and like some people thought I was mental. They couldn't understand like why I was doing that. Do you know what I mean? But do you know, even when I started it, and even when I started that course, I always wanted to set up my own business. And for me, like, the main kind of thing for me is, like, I just wanted to get to a point where, like, it didn't matter whether it was 5 year, 10 year, 20 years experience. Experience isn't everything, do you know what I mean? I have came across guys who have been doing this stuff for 25, 30 years. Their attitude's horrendous, man. Like, they should retire, do you know what I mean? Like, they've just been doing it too long, do you know what I mean? So it isn't always the be all and end all that. But for me, I just wanted to get to a certain point where I knew and understood enough. It wouldn't matter who I was interviewing, it wouldn't matter who I was bringing into my business. I would know if they were good, they knew what they were doing, and they wouldn't be able to pull the wool out of my eyes, do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So really, all that extra kind of stuff and all that I'd done, it was all kind of off the back of that. But I loved that job there. It was brilliant. We had an amazing team. Like, everybody in that team, they were brilliant. Like, really, really, really good. Dead supportive, dead friendly. We all got on really, really well, and it brought me on a lot, so it did. But then COVID came. So it did. And SSE at the time we were actually selling off the retail part of the company, which was bought by OVO Energy. OVO Energy owned Corgi Home Plan. Corgi Home Plan's like a subcontract model. So it is. So they had bought over the retail part, SSE, and merged it with Corgi, but they made us all redundant. So they did.
So this was in 2020 then?
2020, mate, aye. Literally, it was, I think it was literally a week before the first lockdown. We'd heard this was going to be happening. Then we went into lockdown, and then maybe a couple of weeks after it, we all get told that we were going to be getting made redundant. So it was pretty far on, but I mean, people seeing this as such a negative thing, right? And for me, like, it wasn't great the way it all happened, right? These things never ever are. But to be fair to them, like, they gave us a fantastic opportunity. So basically, because we already had the kind of contract work side of things with Corgi, right? We were moving into do Corgi work, and we were going in self-employed, had our own van. They basically sold us our stock, our van stock, tools and everything for £1, right? So we got to take all that with us, and they guaranteed us a minimum amount of work for the first year I've been set up, and we get a few quid for redundancy. Some areas get more, some areas get less, and they enhanced that just for obviously the timing that it would have been there. I mean, I thought it was brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so you took the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like, if you commit the negativity part about it, you've been made redundant. To me, I'm like, you would never get a better opportunity to start up your own business. Like, somebody's guaranteeing you in a contract a minimum amount of work. It'll give you. We must have got about no far off like 10 grand's worth of kit. Do you know what I mean? For £1, plus a decent sum for redundancy. Do you know what I mean? A lot of the guys didn't take it up. Do you know what I mean? And listen, that's fine, each to their own. Do you know? Like, no, everybody wants to go out and be self-employed. And
is that point when you kind of started Matchless Gas then? Is that when that was first sort of formed?
Aye, absolutely. That's when I kind of started to set it all up. But, do you know, when that happened, I'd already kind of had a wee taste of self-employed and that before. I was going to set up another gas company, and one thing led to another, and it didn't really work out at the time. But I'd already kind of had a taste of it and already kind of seen what I was wanting to do. So for me, like, for a minute I heard that, like, I had the van booked in to get wrapped and everything like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was hitting the ground running.
Going for it.
But, do you know, like, looking back now, like, I wanted to take the company to the sky. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was no holding back for me. But when I look back now, for everything that's came through, man, like, I totally underestimated what it would take. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's one thing working for yourself and being self-employed, but try to grow a business and run a business professionally.
It's different. It really is different.
It's a totally different kettle of fish.
A lot more accountability for people, and then you need to let go a bit, and you're not new on every job, and
I know,
having to think about where's the work coming in for, and hiring, and all sorts.
So I done service and repair. That was my thing, right? I done installs and that, but I was better at selling them. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I was at fitting them. So I never ever really had the desire to go down that road to be an out and out installer, because I was always better at sales. Do you know what I mean? And I always wanted to be in a position where I came off the tools anyway. But my first year, I sold. So I was going out to the jobs myself. I was the service engineer, the breakdown engineer, and I was the salesman. Do you know? I had an installer that worked for me. And I think the first year I done about 127 boilers. Sold myself. Do you know what I mean? Which was really, really good. Do you know what I mean? For a guy just on his own.
It just shows you it's all started to pay off right there. That's just proof in the pudding, really.
Totally.
That it's good that you learnt the background of it all as well. It's like, because, like, if you hadn't actually, there's always a lot more substance if you see somebody who's just selling a roof or selling a boiler or whatever it is, but they're not actually from that trade as such. They're just their sales, but maybe picked up that script or whatever. Then it's totally different. But the fact that you'd went and put the time and effort in, and all the free work that you did to actually try and get to that point.
And good. Again, it's kind of people skills as well, isn't it? And it's like, do you know, I remember me and Billy, Billy obviously my business partner, we had sat down and we were doing sales scripts, right? And it was like doing it quite formally. Do you know what I mean? And I never ever had any sales experience. So I just did the gift of the gab. Do you know what I mean? I was just good at punting things. Do you know what I mean? But obviously I had never went through like an actual structured process. I done that. So it's funny because I found that really hard, right? I was like
trying to put a structure around it.
Like just and answering all these things, and it was quite challenging because I'm like, I didn't expect this. I thought I'd have been really, really good at this, as opposed to just like being natural. Do you know what I mean? Where there's people who are good at selling things, and then there's people who are good at applying how they're trained to do something. Do you know what I mean? But I'd employed a lassie in the office to do my admin. I'd an installer, and I took on an apprentice. I mean, like on the first year, do you know? It's like, I mean, talk about getting yourself a headache. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes you've got to, mate. Do you know, like definitely.
Some people spend 10 years thinking about doing that, whereas you can just get it done in the first year, and you learn fast. It's the quickest way to learn, really.
Aye. The young boy who came out with us to do the apprenticeship, he was actually a relation of my ex-partner's. He came out with us through the Kickstart scheme. So at first, you basically had them for nothing. Do you know what I mean? But you know what? The wee guy had applied himself to it so well, Jamie, you know, and like I'm a strong believer in giving back to people, do you know what I mean? And especially certain things in my life that I can relate to, and this young boy was dead relatable in a lot of ways to like how I had been. He's literally, we took him out the apprenticeship and put him through the course. He's getting into his assessment next week, so he is.
He's kind of following the similar path as what you have.
There was a lot of, I like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like that.
I've just seen maybe a wee bit of you and somebody else and gone, folk gave me a chance here or there, or I took my own opportunity, and that you're willing to pass that back.
Aye, totally. But that's kind of got to that point, and I was like, right, I really want to take this to the next level, and the brand and marketing's everything. Do you know what I mean? Like people, marketing like is king in business. It trumps everything. It doesn't matter what type of business it is. Do you know what I mean? And that's where the relationship with me and Billy came into play. You know, like I had the industry knowledge and experience, but you know, like we wanted to be the Coca-Cola, the heating industry. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, I know I don't have. That's not me. I don't have that ability to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like I need to bring somebody in for that. Me and Billy had kind of met prior to that. We had a good relationship. You know, had a lot of respect for him.
Well, the brand's looking good now. And what's the future plans then? Is there, you're kind of went more off into the air source heat pump stuff now? Is it going to be more of that? You're looking to grow things and.
Last year we kind of focused on the renewables and getting our set up, getting our MCS, getting our PAS to get an eco and everything. And I feel that's where the industry's going. Like some people like it, some people don't. I personally just see it as a great opportunity. We still do gas boilers, you know, we still do loads of servicing, repairs. Gas boiler installations. Heat pumps aren't at a point where they're suitable for everybody, right? But there's, I didn't believe in it. No, I didn't believe in it. I was unsure of it, right, to begin with, because it's new technology, you know, like you're used to the traditional gas central heating system. But now we've started fitting them, and I've seen it working in people's houses. Like they work, you know, like as long as they're designed and installed properly, it's where the future's going. And for me, moving forward, we want to be the biggest or one of the biggest brands and companies out there.
You've certainly got the determination in that, mate. You've proved that with sharing your story there. That's awesome, mate. And if anybody's want to kind of connect with you or that, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Just get us on LinkedIn. That's the best way.
Aye, perfect, mate. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing that with us, bud. I appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
Man, thank you.
See you later.